Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining from all around the world. Namaste, namaskar, namaskaram, vanakkam, kimcho. I am Thomas Abraham, Chairman of the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, in short form GOPIO. It is my great pleasure to welcome our chief guest, former Ambassador T.P. Srinivasan, our distinguished speakers, GOPIO officials, life members, and all participants joining us globally for this webinar. Founded in 1989, GOPIO is a pan-Indian non-profit organization with over 100 chapters in 35 countries. For the past 36 years, GOPIO has served as a global platform for dialogue, advocacy, and community engagement while strengthening the bond between Indian diaspora and our motherland, India. Today's topic, coping with technological changes and challenges, is both timely and critical. We are living through an unprecedented acceleration of technology, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, data systems, new energy sources, and biotechnology are transforming economies and societies at a pace never seen before. These advances bring immense opportunities for innovation, productivity, and improved quality of life. At the same time, they pose serious challenges: rapid job displacement, skills gaps, ethical and privacy concerns, and a widening digital divide. The transformation is no longer a future possibility, it is already here. The key question is how we prepare our societies to adapt, retrain, and ensure that technological progress remains inclusive and humane. Global Indian diaspora, which GOPIO has proudly connected to for more than 3 decades, is uniquely positioned to contribute. Our scientists, technologists, entrepreneurs, and professionals are at the forefront of global innovation. By sharing knowledge and experience, we can help guide technology to serve humanity, create new opportunities, and strengthen global cooperation. Let us approach this era not with fear, but with foresight, responsibility, and optimism. I thank you all for joining us today and look forward to the insight from our distinguished speakers. Now I invite GOPIO President, Mr. Prakash Shah, to deliver his remarks. Thank you. Prakash ji, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Obviously, as Thomas mentioned, large changes are coming to the society and our lifestyle. We at GOPIO have initiated this monthly webinar series under which we have every month, second Saturday of every month at 11 a.m. We have this webinar on a different subject each month. Today's subject is of a special importance. As big changes are coming, driverless cars, battery-operated cars, robotics, and AI, just a few of these changes will result in 30-40 million people unemployed in the United States alone. There is going to be a high need of power and big demands on water. All of these are in short supply. There's a shortage already of critical minerals and shortage of rare earth minerals. So all these are culminating in major changes, and we are the technologists who have contributed significantly to making these changes happen. So we also have a responsibility as a society, as diaspora, to contribute ideas for how to address these changes. What should we do about it? Should we tackle the unemployment problem? So many people are going to get a windfall from these changes, but then so many people are going to lose their jobs. What should society do other than just stand by and let it happen? Thank you so much. let me invite Sunil Roberts Vipula to moderate the session further going forward. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you, Prakash ji. Thank you, Dr. Thomas Abraham. You set the tone for what could be seen as a very exciting webinar. Folks, this is our last webinar for the calendar year. We've embarked on this journey of having monthly engagement with the diaspora. And my role was to originally conceptualize and help. But today I'm actually stepping in for the original moderator, Dr. Prabhu Guptara, who, due to some extenuating circumstances, had to step away to attend to domestic duties within the family. Because of that, I'm stepping in. Big shoes to fill because he is a thinker, a writer, publisher par excellence, a polymath and multilinguist. But I hope someday you get to have the benefit of him coming back and leading and contributing his thought leadership. Today, I'm very excited to invite a distinguished set of panelists, but more importantly, even our chief guest as well. I take immense pleasure in welcoming Ambassador T.P. Srinivasanji. So welcome. I want to, on behalf of the entire GOPIO family, welcome you to this webinar. And I believe, and I hope this is the first of many of series of engagements that we will collaborate with you. The reason I place that request is you have a very unique voice as a diplomat, TV commentator, and author of several books, a former ambassador of India. You've served India with distinguished colors, and you were a governor at the International Atomic Energy Agency. And folks, today he is also converting all his bandwidth of energy to be an adjunct professor of eminence at a couple of universities. And he's also helping in academic, shaping the academic thought and inspiring future diplomats and foreign service officers. So without much ado, sir, I want to hand over the baton to you, and you address this gathering, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sunil. Dr. Abraham and colleagues. First of all, let me say how grateful I am that you have given me this honor to be the chief guest with this very distinguished panelists and audience. Looking at them, I feel that I am the least qualified person among all of us to speak about this subject because technology is not my forte. But nobody can escape the effects of what we call the changes and challenges of technology, whatever be your profession. Even diplomacy, of which I have been practicing for several years, has been changing ever since technology started going these leaps and bounds. There are many, many examples one can give of how technology has enabled and also disabled diplomacy in so many words. So the technology has changed every profession, and nobody can close their eyes to the problems and the prospects of rapid development of technology. And nobody can be indifferent to the tectonic tremors technology has created. Yuval Harari, whom you all know very well, I'm sure, has repeatedly said that the biggest challenge of technology is the speed with which it is moving. So he has been talking about the centuries that an amoeba has taken to take a human form, while artificial intelligence and other new technologies are traveling much faster. So we are the result of an evolution, but what we are seeing today are the effects of revolutions, one after the other. Thinking of these changes, I was following the news the day after we had a test run. We had a discussion or preparatory meeting. The next morning, I looked at the news to see whether there were many changes overnight since we met. You will be astonished that there are so many changes in that particular night when it comes not only to technology, but also international relations. Just to give you the speed with which things are moving. That day, Oracle announced that their stocks has dropped by 13%. It was a tremor. Then we heard also that day that data centers are being shifted to outer space for various reasons, to make it more effective, perhaps, to more secure. And this is a major change. And even more surprisingly, it was found and announced that semiconductors, who are running most of the business these days, are fast aging, and they will all stop functioning after a little while, which will need a replacement and considerable expense. One had not expected that. On the political side, we saw this extraordinary development. For the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize this year asked for external intervention in her country. This is exceptional for a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize to demand that others should intervene in her country. Another astonishing thing that happened that morning was the United States had announced a massive arms supply to Pakistan. President Trump was the one during his first term turned around Pakistan and told them that all the money that we are going to give you will be stopped because the money that we had given you for fighting terrorism has been misused. And the same president has given Pakistan so much of arms that it has become a crisis situation in the subcontinent. And lastly, the army chief of Pakistan declares himself the supreme commander of the armed forces. Again, the same day. He also proposed that there should be a SARC without India. Nobody has ever suggested that. And going a little bit further, Finland joined the NATO after the war between Ukraine and Russia, you know that. And today, what has happened is the land of Santa Claus, from where Santa Clauses went around the world, entertaining and gifting people around the world, has been turned into a NATO war zone with thousands of NATO soldiers practicing actual war activities 100 kilometers from the Russian border because of rumors that Russia might attack Finland, which is a new member of NATO. So such is the pace with which turn things topsy-turvy. Beliefs that we have had, understandings we have had about everything in the world has changed. I know occasions when lack of communications has affected diplomatic practice. Without mentioning names, I could say that there was one occasion, of course, Thomas Abraham is aware of that, where we took a decision, the government of India took a decision without the advice of its ambassador there in that country. Because I simply had only one phone and a teleprinter. And for 3 days, I could not contact Delhi. And Delhi made rather, shall we say, uninformed choices and made decisions, which took us 10 years to rectify. On the other hand, technology helped us when to avoid detection when we had the 1998 nuclear tests in Pokhran. What had happened was the American ambassador had come to the Prime Minister, Narasimha Rao, and told him that I know that you are preparing to test in Pokhran. Prime Minister said, I have no information. Where do you get this from? So the ambassador, rather foolishly, handed over a set of pictures, satellite pictures, taken by American satellites, showing Dr. Abdul Kalam and others working very hard in Pokhran too. So Prime Minister Rao was very clever. He told him, can you leave these pictures with me? And he did that. And that eventually led to our being able to keep our explosion secret even from the CIA and the State Department. And President Clinton was so angry, not because of the tests, but for the fact that with all the sources of information he had, Indians had not allowed it to be detected. So these are two: one, a failure of diplomacy when the communications failed, and the other, a victory for us because of our understanding and our Prime Minister to deal with an issue very effectively. So since things happen like that in such speed, it is not easy to draw up a plan or code of conduct for developing technology. Of course, that is what we are trying to do. That's what we are going to discuss, how to meet the charms and the challenges. This has been in our minds, but the earliest expression of this in concrete terms, what the UN Security Council did when artificial intelligence became more and more in use. So what they did was the United Nations Security Council expressed concern that AI might one day cause conflicts in the world. And also, it might cause instability in the world. So one principle that AI should follow, according to the UN Security Council, was that humans must be in full control of life and death decisions. And they said, I'm quoting, "The fate of humanity must never be left to the black box of an algorithm," the UN Security Council said. So the suggestion was, they did not know how to do it, but the suggestion was that AI should build binding guardrails on AI for its activities, particularly when they do engage in something concerning peace and security in the world. Of course, no formulation was made, no decision was taken, but I mentioned it because such a step has been taken by the Security Council. And perhaps that is one way in which we could deal with technology development and meet its changes and challenges. Of course, we should realize that such regularities are not easy to establish because much of transformative technology in development are confidential and sometimes competitive among gigantic private enterprises. So I would just suggest that it would be necessary for us to slow down the progress of technology so that we do not face the kind of dangers that Security Council has seen in it. But I'm sure that this webinar, consisting of several knowledgeable people, may be able to find out and establish, as a result of our discussions, other measures. But basically, it is to humanize technology. So these are all words one can use at random, but how do you humanize technology? What is human technology? What should be the speed? Is the danger of technology such that it should be slowed down? And how do countries agree on these things, particularly when most of these experiments are confidential and even competitive? So these are the challenges that I thought I could think of as a layman. And the key to it is to make technology human and keep it in the hands of humans and not in the hands of a robot or any other process that we have. So I hope our webinar will lead to a very good discussion, deep discussion on these, and come up with some of these restrictions or regulations which can be imposed, even if it means a slowing down of the technology. We have benefited from the technology of the past, but we should not be unaware that there are dangers. And therefore, the speed, as Yuval Harari said, of revolution may not be preferable to the age of evolution. So this is the little point that I thought I'd make in my short address to you. Thank you very much once again for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador T.P. Srinivasan Garu. We really enjoyed the way you painted in broad strokes the challenges and the opportunities that this technology, and sometimes the speed is almost bewildering. So what I wanted to actually, before I introduce my panel and we get into a deeper dive, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on in this whole juggernaut of technology coming and almost overwhelming. Do you think there are opportunities where some of these technologies can uplift the people at what they call the bottom of the pyramid? Is there some opportunities where some of these technologies can be accelerated to lift people out of poverty, to enhance educational opportunities, particularly when in emerging countries where the population numbers are huge?
Well, the very purpose of new technology is to uplift the people in so many ways. We are thinking of action which we had never imagined a few years ago. So, which means the purpose of technology fundamentally is to increase the level of knowledge, understanding, ability, opportunities in every field. Education, needless to say, is AI is being used in education and there's tremendous potential. Maybe no universities will have any buildings anymore. Everybody will probably learn everything from home, and probably Harvard professors will come in a form and sit next to you and teach you. So these are the kind of things happening. So it's definitely for that. But then what I was saying was that since we know the dangers also and we have experienced it of war and peace, so it could be maybe the speed may not be as necessary as safety, or put that also into the consideration. But now it does not seem to be so. And because of the highly competitive nature in which these happen and companies collapse and companies rise and all that, I don't know how any methodology can be found to deal with this. But I'm just saying that we may need such regulations, such systems in order to get rid of the evils of technology if there are. Thank you.
Guardrails, speed bumps, checks and balances, I think, are the order of the day. Thank you so much for your insightful comments. And as a former expert on international atomic energy and global affairs, your insights are much appreciated. Thank you very much on behalf of GOPIO for your presence here. And if there are opportunities for you to respond to any of the audience's questions, we'd love for you to stand by. Thank you so much. Folks, that was our chief guest, Honorable Ambassador T.P. Srinivasan ji. Now I'd like to take a moment to welcome our distinguished panel. Firstly, I want to welcome Professor D. Yogi Goswami. He's got a series of degrees, a string of degrees, and in short, I'll just take a couple moments to let you know that he's the director of Clean Energy Research Center at USF Tampa, Florida, and his expertise as a thought leader is just all too well known. And the Clean Energy Research Center pursues scientific research and information transfer, and his entire swim lane is clean energy systems. And maybe because it has something to do with energy, he ended up writing more than 23 books, 400 papers, and he holds 43 patents. So, Professor Yogi, I'm so delighted to welcome you. And my opening question to you is, what are some of the opportunities and challenges you're seeing in the new innovations you're seeing that will change our lives in a very positive way?
Thank you very much, Sunil ji. and thank you for inviting me, Dr. Thomas Abraham, to be on this webinar. The question you've asked is really always at the top of my mind. As a researcher, I'm always thinking of things in the future that sometimes people hear about them 10 years, 15 years from that time that I've been thinking about. So at the top of my mind right now is the global challenge of climate change, which we are in right now, no doubt about it. The question always is, how soon can we get to a point where we are at net carbon emission, net zero carbon emissions? And at the present rate, whatever technologies we have, there's no doubt that we will not achieve that even for the next 50 years. However, uh, since I think of innovations and the future, I'm just going to describe a few, just as examples of innovations that might change that trajectory that I've just described about global climate change. So I will describe them in very brief, but later on, if audience have any questions about anything specific I've said, I will then go into it in a deeper sense. So let me share my screen just so you have some. Okay, all right. So I think you can see my screen. And I start with a simple problem, building cooling. Uh, but even though it's simple, even at this time, 25% of all of the energy used in USA is for cooling of buildings. And it's increasing. And with the data centers coming up, that need is going to continue to increase even more. In Europe, in the past, buildings did not used to have air conditioners. And now all of the buildings are being air conditioned. So you will see an increase over there. And in India, where in the past, a lot of people could not afford air conditioning, now they can. And so it's going to continue to increase over there also. And all of that building cooling comes from mechanical power, which requires energy, and it again adds to the carbon dioxide emissions. But the innovation that I'm going to talk about, let's see if I can advance the slide. Okay, so the innovations I'm going to talk about. I know people in India are all too familiar. In the past, there used to be certain times of the year that people would put something outside, and by the morning it would become very, very cold. In fact, they had even made ice that way. And that was by radiative cooling. That is, you radiate the heat into sky, which is very cold, and that way you can cool something. However, the new innovation is utilizing not the sky, but deep space as the heat sink for radiative cooling. Because the deep space is at a temperature of absolute zero. And so this can happen because one of the researchers at Stanford, Raman was his name, uh, he figured out that there is a wavelength range, 8 micron to 13 micron, for which the atmosphere is transparent. We call it atmospheric window. So if you can radiate heat in that wavelength range, that heat will go straight to deep space. And if you're exchanging heat with a body at absolute zero temperature, you can do a lot of cooling. So the innovation is to design a surface that reflects most of the solar radiation and emits in that wavelength range, which is the atmospheric window. And in fact, Raman, because he was working on his PhD at that time, designed a surface which would reflect most of the solar radiation and emit in the atmospheric window. And he achieved. He put this thing on the roof of the building, facing the sun during daytime, and you would expect the temperature to go up. Instead, the temperature went down by 5 degrees Celsius. So that was the first demonstration of it. This is transformative development, but the problem is that the way he did it is not commercially viable. It did show us the way that we need to move so that we could cool our buildings that way. So that started global research on paint development. That is, you develop a paint that you would use for the buildings, which would allow the buildings to cool themselves rather than mechanical cooling. And that would be net carbon zero cooling of the buildings. So a lot of people, especially from China, continue to publish, and they talk about achieving 7 degrees Celsius cooling, 8 degrees Celsius cooling, and so on. I don't believe them because what they do is under very specific conditions. In our case, just a master's student developed a paint and put it out in the sun, as you can see here, facing the sun when the sun is exactly overhead. And he put just an aluminum foil as one sample, and then he used the best available paint on the market, which is called the cool roof paint on the second one, and the third one, the paint that he had developed. Now, temperature of the bare aluminum panel went up by about 20 degrees Celsius. Temperature of this cool roof paint went up by 10 degrees Celsius. Facing the sun during the day on a cloudless day, his sample temperature did not go up at all. Okay, so he achieved something, but we're not there yet. It'll take another 2-3 years, I would say, when we get to a point where this paint will actually not just remain at ambient temperature, but the temperature will go down. And then you imagine that you put that paint on buildings, you don't need your mechanical cooling anymore. And some question was, people at the lower end of economic strata, how would so they could use that paint and have cooling just like other people have. Then there are other things that have come into the picture. This one is from MIT, from their MIT Technology magazine, which said that they have developed a color changing coating that you apply on buildings, and during winter times the color is dark because you need the heat. During summertime that color becomes transparent, and so that again helps in cooling. The only problem in their development is this is electrochromic, excuse me, electrochromic color changing coating. So that means you have to apply electric current to it. At our place, we developed something, uh, another color changing coating, but in our case, you don't have to apply any electrical current. You just touch it with a metal and you see this experiment. So what was black initially, by touching with a metal, it became completely transparent. So that will help in the building cooling as well as heating. So these are some of the innovations that you will start to see on the market maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, if not sooner. The other developments, nanoscale antennas to convert sunlight to electrical power. You know about solar panels. They are used a lot all over the world now, but their efficiency is about 22%. The nanoscale antennae have a potential efficiency of 80%. That means 4 times. And what it's based on is that our photovoltaic panels are based on what we call the quantum nature of light. Light has dual nature. It is a electromagnetic wave, and it also has quantum nature. So we utilize quantum nature. But antennas, you're familiar with radio antennas. We capture the radio waves, which are electromagnetic waves. They're converted to electrical signal and then back to audio and video signal. It's the same concept, except that in this case, the antennas are nanoscale. And so, but this is not a new concept. It was patented in 1973 by Professor Bailey, and he was, when I moved to the state of Florida, he was a colleague for a few years before he retired. So he had this concept, and at Jet Propulsion Lab, this was in the around 1980 or so, they actually used microwaves at 2.45 gigahertz. So they had a microwave generator on one side and antennas on the other side, and they converted that microwave to electrical power at an efficiency of 80%. The only problem is that our sunlight frequency is not gigahertz, it's in terahertz, extremely high frequency. But in the past, we did not have the nanotechnologies which we have today. So having those technologies, I'm sure that we are going to have these nanoscale antennas in the future. Now I've written here it as rectennas. That is, it's a combination of antenna and rectifier. So because you got to rectify that terahertz frequency to DC and then to AC at 50, 60 hertz that we actually use in our electrical power grid. So that, and eventually even these antennas will be biologically grown, just like single cell algae that I've shown you. So think about it, that cost will be extremely low, efficiency will be 80%, and it will convert not just during the daytime when the sun is shining, but also nighttime, because we do have radiation even at nighttime. So now, before I end this thing, I've got to mention this because this is the Goswami cycle. And so back in mid 90s, I proposed a concept of converting very low temperature heat to power and also produce cooling. And later on, people started calling it the Goswami cycle. And the advantage of this is that we could add this to the bottom of all of the thermal power plants today, and they will be producing additional power, and the heat they're rejecting now into the environment would not be rejected, and you would be producing the power out of it as well as cooling out of that. So these are just some of the innovations that I mentioned, and there are many more. I felt that in the time period, because there are other panelists also, they need to have time to talk about their inventions, innovations, and so on. So I'll stop at this point, and later on, if there are questions from audience about any of these things or other things related to energy, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. That was very well articulated. Your passion is contagious, and I do have a couple of questions that I'll wait to ask. Like always, I'm concerned about how does this set of technologies that and innovations that are coming, and some you had the opportunity to champion, really transform people at a different strata that I'm always concerned about. So thank you so much for your input. We'll come back to you in a little bit. The next two speakers are actually from a bit of a deviation from Professor Goswami. I want to introduce Piyush Malikji, who is a hands-on practitioner, startup executive, entrepreneur, board leader, and a speaker at reputed forums in the business and transformation segment, in addition to also having the role of an angel investor. He's got his pedigree from biggest names, really. He's worked as with a Google partner startup, Spring ML, and also he led the worldwide big data and analytics center within IBM. So the names are right up there, and the focus that he spent all his life were in the areas of digital transformation, AI, ML, cloud, analytics, IoT, data management, and engineering. So he's been spearheading initiatives at a very senior level, served as a chief digital and technology officer. So he's got a really ringside view on how corporations and enterprises are riding this technology wave to transform the lives of their customers in different segments of business. So in addition to being a practitioner, he also is a thought leader, and he serves many industry advisory boards, and you may read it all on screen. Without wasting too much time, let's put our hands together and welcome Piyush Malikji. Piyush, over to you.
Thank you, Sunil, and thank you, the GOPIO leadership team, especially Dr. Abraham, for the invitation. I've been a fan of GOPIO for a number of years and have attended several events as well. Today, I will be talking about the field that comes from my experience and the data and AI field, and the esteemed leaders and innovators and change makers who have gathered here today. It's no surprise that the world stands at an inflection point with respect to artificial intelligence, and it's not a distant promise. It's an active force reshaping economies, and as Ambassador noted, the political conditions, the economic conditions. It has impacted culture and daily life as well. So, but the question before us is not whether AI will transform our world, but whether humanity will transform itself fast enough to cope with the change wisely, inclusively, and ethically. And towards that end, I want to give my bird's eye view perspective through some prepared set of slides. And if we can share that, let me see if I can get to it. Seems we are having a technical difficulty in sharing. Let me go back. I hope it is visible now.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Let me try one more time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, now we can see it.
You can make it full screen. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll These prepared comments are about the state of disruption, how did we get here, and some crystal ball gazing at what's coming and what we can do next in this context. The disruption in AI is faster than we have ever seen in our human civilization. Whether it is the large language models that basically democratized AI in the eyes of the common man, and the dinner table conversations literally have become about how everybody is using these large language models, or whether it is in the relationships between US and China, and sometimes India as well, as to who is going to lead and continue to pace in AI. It's definitely a geopolitical issue when companies are not allowed to sell their chips to a certain country, and we've seen some executive orders come through as well. We have seen some recent disruptive things earlier in 2025 when at 1/100th cost, a Chinese company comes up with a model that stuns the world. And again, it continues to repeat, whether it was the DeepSeek moment, whether it was the Manus release, whether it was all in the context of how US will lead, or whether China will be allowed to take lead in this space. And then there was this announcement about the AI Stargate. The $500 billion investments, and especially in AI infrastructure, because all these applications require data centers, require the infrastructure which is built on silicon semiconductors to take it forward. And then there are companies coming together, consortia coming together. What is now evident is that we are going towards physical AI, which is the embodiment of robotics and AI together. And this is something which low cost humanoids being deployed in factories, and not only the white collar jobs being displaced, but the manufacturing jobs, the blue collared work is also gonna be changing. So that's something which leading companies like Nvidia, Tesla have been getting into as well. And if we look from the disruption perspective, whatever we knew of internet in the last 20 years, whatever we knew of search since Google came on and displaced all the incumbents in the search marketplace, and whatever commerce that we see, whether it is through Amazon Web Services or any other e-commerce companies, that are being rapidly disrupted by all these apps. And there are some examples of apps on stage where you can generate presentations in seconds with just word prompts, where you can make movies. And these models are getting extremely great at doing whatever a person desires. What this is leading towards is that there are people who will be able to start companies just by themselves and deploy hundreds and thousands of AI agents which will do the task. So this definitely causes some disruption. Just this pace is that such that not only are the technologies getting in every day, but rapid surprises happen. Just in the tech and policy and impact space in the last 5 days, not only did we see uh, progress in terms of deregulation that the tech companies had asked for, that instead of having so many different rules in each state in US had different rules for and regulations for governing AI. Now, Trump has released an executive order saying there will be one rule which has been very welcomed by the tech leaders. And then 2 days ago, embodiment of AI in transportation, a driverless car. 2 years back was my first time I sat in a Waymo, and very, very excited about it. And then 2 days back, you see this, the first child is born in a driverless car in San Francisco. And then yesterday, I saw this Person of the Year. The architects of AI have been declared as the Person of the Year, and this is something which you can see. Some of these are researchers, some of these are executives in this space. So it's definitely catching our imagination. How did we get here? I'll just very quickly say that, from the old data centers to IBM Watson winning the Jeopardy championship, all of that has contributed to us getting in here. And we are getting in terms of where we are today is that while there are challenges from uh, job losses, there is excitement as well in terms of what possibilities it brings. And recent study by MIT said that 95% of Gen AI projects fail, and that number could be misleading. I have been in this field for the last 30 years, and I've seen a bunch of springs, AI springs and winters, and those cause for some degree of realization that yes, there is overhyping by the marketeers sometimes, but then it's in the adoption. And challenge is not in the technology. Challenge is how we are preparing our workforce to adopt those technologies, how we are preparing our population for general population for integrating with our entire system so that we can existing flows can be integrated. And as we look in the organizations, how can we reimagine the work such that it is AI first and not retrofitting? The biggest challenge that I have always seen in technology adoption in the IT space is data quality not being correct. And if the AI is being fed by data which is erroneous, obviously the predictions would be wrong. And if the guardrails are not there, there are chances that the hallucinations that the large language models do or other AI systems, if they are operated without guardrails, that'll cause challenges. And a lot of folks are in the enterprise doing random proof of concepts without a coherent strategy. So those are some of the challenges that we see. And in terms of getting in how what is coming, I just want to make sure I put my viewpoint forward that it is not AI is not replacing humans as such, but humans who know how to apply AI, and assistive and augmented intelligence is the operative word. And the digital co-workers, whether it is the digital twins that we are able to create, or whether it is the digital co-workers who accelerate the pace of innovation, and that's an exciting thing that's happening. And of course, the large language models are just the beginning. Bigger, better, faster, and reliable AI is coming. The reliability has dramatically improved in the last 3 years since the first ChatGPT model came. And now we are also seeing agent to agent communications. And as I mentioned earlier, the internet and e-commerce as we knew it earlier would be withering away because the next buyer would not be a human, it'll be an agent that would be working on our behalf. Software as a service will be replaced by service as software with human in the loop. AI will be embraced by all industries and professions. It is a no-brainer. And you will see unicorn founders as solopreneurs as unicorn founders. And the skills shortage definitely has to be addressed by self-initiative and motivation of all of us. But at the same time, we can't absolve the companies for and the government for not initiating. So from that perspective, I've seen a lot of these hyperscalers put out some free courses out there, and there are governments who are incentivizing their citizens to get involved and get AI literate. And I talked about embodied cognition and physical AI. That's the robotic assistants. And one viewpoint that I heard from Vinod Khosla last week was that labor would be virtually free by 2040. Not sure of the date, but yes, we are getting towards abundance of these low cost assistive devices being available. And yes, we have also seen last week a news about data centers in space, the first data center in space and first large language model being trained in space. And there are advantages to that. Less cooling, less energy is required, but of course that's the future that we are getting towards. And of course the elusive AGI, which we all talk about, artificial general intelligence, where the machines will be much more powerful than humans. And of course, the application of quantum technologies and AI will reshape our world. But we definitely have to be ready for the next. We can be anything we choose with AI. And one thing which I want to audience to take away is you cannot automate trust, judgment, or wisdom. Let's connect, collaborate, and empower, and let's not forget our humanity. Being human is a gift. Let's enjoy that. With that, thank you very much, and let's continue to work, collaborate, and work towards a brighter future. Thank you.
Yeah, PFG, fantastic summary of all the technologies, the guardrails, what's coming down the pike. And both you and our chief guest alluded to the speed with which this juggernaut is rolling towards us. And you also gave us a little bit of what can we expect in the near future. And that's a very valuable insight for us as we set it up for your bullet number 10, which is basically quantum computing and AI will rule the roost in a short while, is actually also another pet area for our fellow panelists whom I'll be introducing. But before I introduce her, a sincere word of thanks on behalf of all of us. I'll possibly come back to you with a question as soon as we are done with the next two panelists. Thank you so much. So, folks, we've started with our honorable chief guest. He set the tone and the framework. Then we had Professor Yogi share his research and some of the high impact areas in the energy. Then we had Mr. Piyush Malik, who shared how the technologies are really rapidly embracing all aspects of society. And his comment about how commerce will change the world actually told me of a small incident that I'm currently visiting India. And I was told about how these 8-minute, 10-minute, 11-minute rapid delivery systems that have changed most middle class families and affluent families. Apparently, there was a requirement for someone who was working on a laptop, and it required more time for that young lady to go in to a different room and fetch it. And she didn't want to break her chain of thought while she was working. So she opened a window and ordered what she needed. And while she was at her living room, just by stretching out, was able to open the door, grab the delivery from whatever she needed. So it of course, she had the wherewithal and the resources, but where we are going as a society is within an instant we are able to get to what we want, and there's this whole supply chain that is now getting built to get us in exchange for our data and so on and so forth. So without much ado, I want to introduce to you another exciting panelist, Dr. Lata Christie. Dr. Lata Christie spent a fair amount of time, close to 4 decades, in India's defense and aerospace space technologies. And her focus areas are microwave, high power, direct energy systems, and electromagnetic simulation. She's working on her second PhD, as if the first one in aerospace engineering was not enough. So her focus is trying to blend multiple disciplines and focus on the intersection of AI and ethics. So I'm sure it's a fascinating topic, and she will dwell into a few things. But I would like to ask her and say, in the area of quantum computing and AI, what are some exciting developments? What are some things you're seeing? And what should we be knowing, Dr. Lata Christie?
Thank you, Sunil, for that wonderful question. And thank you, everyone, for inviting me here.
Yes, yes.
Artificial intelligence is not just another tool. It's improving so fast that even some of the people building it are warning us about its impact. The core reason is quite simple. AI is becoming a general purpose capability like electricity or the internet. It touches everything: learning, work, media, healthcare, security, and competitiveness. It's shifting from answering questions to taking actions, what people call agents, systems that can remember, plan, and execute workflows. We can feel the shift already from write me a summary to read, compare, decide, send, and follow up, from give me a plan to execute the plan. These are all early signs of tools that don't just talk, they do. And many scientists are expecting a future where AI could become more capable than human intelligence, sometimes called as artificial superintelligence. Coming to the next disruptive technology, quantum. It's a new kind of computing and communication built on the strange rules of tiny particles. Classical computers use bits like a switch on and off, 0 or 1. Quantum systems use qubits, which don't behave like ordinary switches. For example, let me give you an analogy for that. A classical computer often tackles a hard problem like checking possibilities one at a time. The way how we would search for a name in a long list of line by line. Quantum, for certain kind of problems, can explore possibilities in more unusual physics driven ways. It's not magic, but what a classical computer can do for years and years, it can do in a second. So, but large scale quantum computing is still underdeveloped. But what is moving faster is quantum communication and quantum security, especially QKD, quantum key distribution. The idea is beautifully simple. In the quantum world, trying to secretly listen can leave a trace because measurement can disturb the signal. That means eavesdropping is difficult. It can become detectable in a way that is different from normal networks. Think of it like this: in ordinary digital communication, someone can copy your message silently. In quantum style security, interception becomes more like opening a sealed envelope and leaving marks. So, what happens now when these two disruptive technologies, AI and quantum, come together? We get a potential step change in computing power, security, and scientific discovery, and also a step change in risk, misuse, and societal disruption. Because all of us know that every powerful technology is dual use. The same capability that can protect lives can also be misused. So the right question is never just can we build it, but also how do we deploy it safely and who stays accountable. So the first way ordinary people may feel quantum plus artificial intelligence together is through trust infrastructure, how we protect banking, healthcare, critical systems, and digital identity in an AI driven world. Digital transformation is of late becoming more personal. I'll connect this to something everyone already senses. Most people think digital transformation is just more apps or moving documents online, but it has stages. First, we digitized documents. Paper became PDFs. Then we digitize processes: banking, travel bookings, payments, governance workflows. Then we digitize the world: sensors, cameras, wearables, GPS, smart infrastructure. Now we are digitizing something deeper, the human being. This is what many call as IOH, the Internet of Humans. identity, behavior, biometrics, preferences, voice, face, habits, health signals, relationships. In other words, you become part of the data stream. When the world becomes more digital, your life becomes more copyable. Your voice can be cloned, your face can be animated, your writing style can be reproduced, your patterns can be predicted. And this leads to something that sounds like science fiction, but it's already emerging in early forms. The idea of a digitized person after death. It's not a soul, not immortality, but a digital representation created from messages, photos, videos, emails, and voice notes. Some people are already have built chatbots or avatars that imitate a deceased person's voice and style. So I'm not saying this as good or bad, but it can comfort some people, but it can also manipulate and harm. But it proves a bigger reality. The boundary between real and simulated is getting thinner. So now coming to AI plus quantum. Let me talk about the few opportunities and the risk involved in that. So what are the opportunities? Opportunity number one. As cyber threats grow, makes attacks cheaper to automate. For example, societies need stronger foundations of digital trust. Quantum security approaches are part of that future toolkit. It's not magic, but meaningful for high value links where trust is critical. Opportunity number two in healthcare and drug discovery. Even without quantum, AI is already accelerating imaging support, diagnostics, and drug screening. Quantum is promising longer term in deeper simulation of molecules, which could reduce trial and error and speed up the search for new medicines. Opportunity number three, smoother daily systems, transport, energy, and logistics. AI already helps route ambulances, traffic, reduce fuel consumptions, optimize supply chains, personalize learning. Quantum may eventually help with certain automation problems. That is not tomorrow morning, it's a direction of travel, not a guarantee on a calendar. In the case of business and economy, for business, the near term story is not quantum will replace your data center. The story is AI powered productivity plus quantum is the safe trust. So AI increases efficiency, but it also increases exposure, more automation, more dependence on digital system. In that environment, trust becomes an economic asset. Organization that can prove security and governance will outperform those that cannot. In the case of a defense in warfare, AI enabled autonomy can protect lives by taking over the most dangerous tasks like surveillance in hazardous zones, IED detection, search and rescue, perimeter monitoring, reducing exposure of soldiers and civilians. And for countries like India, the opportunities is bigger than research papers. It's building talent pipelines, test beds, pilots, supply chains, and real deployments. Finally, the challenges. The hard part is naming risk without fear mongering and without denial. Some of the risk encryption disruption. Large scale quantum computing could threaten some of today's widely used public key encryption. Even if that future is not immediate, the preparation time is long. That's why the world is moving to post quantum cryptography. The key point is simple security migration take years. So we need to plan early. The risk number two, AI accelerates cyber offense and deception. It can automate phishing, impersonation, misinformation, malware writing, deep fakes. It lowers the cost of manipulation. So we are entering a world where seeing is not always believing, where trust must be engineered. Last, governance lag. Technology moves faster than laws and social norms. So the risks we face are not only technical, it's ethical. Who is accountable when an AI system makes a harmful decision? How do we reduce bias and discrimination? How do we prevent unsafe autonomy in high stakes settings? How do we protect children, privacy, and democratic processes from synthetic media? And finally, in future warfare, the danger is speed without judgment. And that is very dangerous. And so, what should we do? We should treat Quantum plus AI, the way we treated aviation or nuclear energy. And I will close with a line that keeps this human. Quantum may change the limits of computation, and AI may change the limits of automation, but our real job is to protect the limits of human responsibility. Thank you.
Said, very well said. You really put the whole thing in perspective. I love the way this pattern is emerging right from Professor our chief guest T.P. Srinivasanji's introductory remarks to what the other panelists had said, and where you left it, where you talked about all the issues that come staring at a society that is embracing technology faster than we can actually recognize it. So you brought the all the human elements wonderfully well as well, Dr. Lata Christie. Thank you so much for your contribution. I will potentially come back to you with a follow-up question, but before that, I'd like to joyfully welcome our last panelist, Mr. Philip Thomas, a dear friend, neighbor from our neighboring Pennsylvania. He's a serial entrepreneur and a digital transformation leader, and he's worked on a lot of AI-enabled modernizations. And he looks at it from a customer perspective, and he advises and leads enterprises, hospitals, and patient engagement apps, and so on and so forth. So much of his work has been in improving customer satisfaction, and how do customers or enterprises look at it from a customer centric viewpoint. And he's also, like our other speakers, a mentor and a thought leader and an advisor in his neighboring Temple University. So without much ado, Philip, I just want to hand over the baton to you by asking, what are some of the exciting developments that you're seeing, or some of the challenges, and what keeps you excited?
Sure. So there are several, within the world of AI, there are several opportunities and challenges. But let me just say this first. Even as I listen to all of the speakers before me who have been so accomplished, I must confess that I get the feeling of being a little bit like Munna Bhai, if you remember the old movie from Bombay, where there are all experts before me. But at the same time, I want to leave here. I want to start with a particular quote that has got nothing to do with technology, but has got everything to do with the world we live in. It was a quote attributed to the chief rabbi in England, Jacob Sachs. He said, "Fire can burn us, fire can warm us. It is up to us to be guardians of the flame." It's the same thing with technology. You see, in technology, it can burn us, it can warm us. The real question ultimately is, can it actually warm us and the people around us? The truth is this: change is inevitable. For those of us who've been in the US for a long time, you remember the days when it cost you $2 over a weekend to call home. I remember times when the phone, I grew up in Calcutta, my grandparents were in Kerala, and they had a little exchange with a 2-digit phone number. So you can imagine the struggle of trying to tell someone in Calcutta, can you please call Ayakundam 17? We could never get past the first word. So there's something about technology that has certainly helped us, where things are moving at a faster pace, where my father and my mother, who are absolute technology Luddites, can actually order something from Swiggy and Zomato when their servant cannot come. So there is something about technology that we have to hold dear, because it brings with it both challenges and opportunities. Now, the real question, of course, is how do we deal with it and how do we leverage it? Now, I will be honest with you that it's something that scares a lot of people. Technology, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to us? Here's the thing. A lot of things will happen. The real question is, how do we begin to kind of ameliorate the effects of technology in our lives? And for that, one thing I will tell you is this: learn, keep yourself abreast of knowledge, learn what is happening in your world. Now, in my world, some of the things that we've been able to do is we work a lot with AI. Now, AI, as you probably know, has become a catch-all word for everything in this. It's a bit like the American term interesting. If you've ever thought of the American term interesting, it can mean to this is a terrible idea to this is fantastic. So AI encompasses a lot of things in this world that we don't often understand. So let me give you a couple of stories. Our CEO will often get up and say, hey, listen, we are investing in AI. Ask him what that means. He may not know. But there are ways to kind of change and use AI, as I said, to predict what a customer is thinking, to understand what they're going through. We have, and by the way, none of this is new. We've had some of these tools for about 10 years where a customer service representative can use an emotional validation tool to understand what the caller is going through. Are they angry? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they nervous? Are they scared about something that is going on? And accordingly modulate their tone so that the customer's real needs are met, not just what they're calling about. We talk about speed and its applicability. So speed is a good thing when we need it, right? When we want something, if our train is not on time, if our plane is not on time, if our plane or train doesn't get to where we are, or if traffic is stopping us, we don't like speed. But otherwise, if we can get there in time, we do like the concept of speed. So there are many applications that begin to come up. I mean, some of the things that we've been talking about, I want to talk to you about some things that have happened 3 years ago. If you were to go back and do a Google search, any of you, I don't need a show of hands, but most of you have probably heard of a band called ABBA. For some of us, when we were growing up, they were a big band. In 2022, there was a concert in England with ABBA. Here's the only difference. There wasn't a single member of ABBA there. It was a complete hologram experience. Now imagine if I want to talk to my parents and AI allows me to speak to them via hologram as opposed to WhatsApp or as opposed to video. How would life change for us? How would those technologies actually help us? What if I want to get together? I mean, think about it this way. Here we are talking on Zoom. Can you have thought of talking on Zoom 10 years ago? We would have had a conference call, right? And only those companies that had expensive Cisco WebEx terminals or WebEx screens could have accommodated so many people. Now here we are, an organization, a person can do this across the board. Entertainment has been something that has been really affected by technology. We've talked about ABBA. For those of you who know this Indian comedian called Nimesh Patel, he attributes his entire success to a technology that we didn't actually talk about, but has often been on the tips of everything in government, TikTok. Now, the question then becomes, how do we manage a sense of control and how do we keep it human and ethical? That's been one of the challenges that I've had. How do I implement technology within my own spheres without losing the humanity of crossing ethical lines? And let me tell you something, that is one of the hardest things to do. That's one of the hardest things to do because what I want may not be what you want. And what you want may not be what I want. You and I may have different ethical frameworks. You and I may have different moral frameworks. People who fish, people who've seen the television series Jamtara, either on Netflix or Prime, know how fishing takes place with illiterate villagers sitting in a small town in Jamtara in Jharkhand district. Now, it's obviously a dramatization, but it actually happens. We've all been recipients of phishing in some shape or form. We've been smart enough to detect it, so we don't fall to it, but a lot of people do fall to it. So let me close by saying a couple of things that are really important over here. One of the things that I know Dr. Lata alluded to, but something we haven't talked about in technology form, is the notion of agentic AI. Agentic AI takes what we know of AI and creates actionable instances. So I don't know whether you are in a large corporation or whether you run a little neighborhood store. I have a young son who runs a pizzeria. Agentic AI can actually help him manage his inventory and also help him create schedules for all of the employees that have to come in during dinner time. This is something that I would highly encourage all of us to focus on. The second thing, and again, this was also alluded by, I think, by Piyush, but the idea that we can create our own movies, create our own songs. AI and technology now gives us a chance to actually follow passions that many of us couldn't. I'm sure most of us who grew up in India, we probably were told by our parents what we should be or what we shouldn't be. I was talking to a friend the other day who said he wanted to be an artist. His father said no. So he said, okay, what if I be an engineer? His father said no. And finally, he became a neurologist. Right? So, but there are passions that are within us, whether it is in the creative side, whether it is in the cooking side, whether it is in being a motivational speaker. Technology allows us to do this. So what we can say now is, if we begin to focus our passion on focusing it on the technologies that can help us grow and help us simulate it and help us expand it, this is the right time for it. The next thing I want to talk about finally is something we haven't really talked about, which is the notion of how do we use emotional intelligence to deal with changes that are going on. I'm going to give you a very old story. It was 1997. For those of you who remember when Deep Blue played against Garry Kasparov, the chess match. Deep Blue won the first, I'm sorry, Kasparov won the first match. But the second match he lost. And at the end of all of this, they did a bit of a kind of deep dive into why he lost. And then the engineers of Deep Blue said something that was so unique, and this is applicable to us. They said they had programmed Deep Blue with some of the best chess moves. But inside that, they added one move that was completely random and would make no sense to any chess grandmaster. That move was executed, and Garry Kasparov lost his bearings. He could not understand what was behind that move. It was a stupid move, it was a silly move, but it was a move that completely took Kasparov off his game, and he lost that game. He resigned. You see, emotional intelligence is like those random things that happen. It teaches us to deal with those random things that happen in our lives. Even within the idea of focus and passion, one thing I forgot to mention, I live in the US, so in America, Christian contemporary music is a huge thing. It's a $20 billion market. Recently, there was a piece of news that the number one album in American Christian music was someone called Solomon Ray. You know what is interesting about Solomon Ray? Solomon Ray does not exist. Solomon Ray is just an AI tool that took the best of voice, that took the best of things, that began to use data to see what people like and created an album that is now the best-selling Christian contemporary music album in America. Now, think about that for a moment. Think about that. If you can master that technology, you don't have to be Taylor Swift. You can be famous. And final thing, and this is something that I know Piyush had focused on and others did as well. It is really important as we build our technology to focus on the difference between how it benefits humanity and how it benefits me. The difference between humanity and self is something that you and I must focus on. There are a lot of things that are good for me, but there are a lot of things that are bad for humanity. I can make money, I can be a billionaire, it doesn't always help humanity. But if we can begin to have those ethical boundaries and have conversations like this around the world among each of us, we begin to develop a commonality in ethical framework, not because we buy into it, but we understand what our peers care about. That's all. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you, Philip Thomas. Very well told some of these stories. I love the broad perspectives that all the four panelists and the honorable chief guest brought, and each of you within from your vantage point of expertise, practical immigrant experiences, and so on and so forth. So wonderful, folks. I don't know about you, but I felt like I'm drinking from a fire hydrant. Just rapidity of ideas, coming. Just like AI and quantum, I think this is a high intensity webinar. So I want to take a moment to just throw some follow-up questions. But let me start with Piyush ji first. I'm not sure if Yogi ji is still there, but let me go to Philip ji and say, Piyush, and ask, you've been in data and AI for a while. I see Yogi here. Thank you. You've worked with the best of breed companies. What keeps you excited and what keeps you going? And let me also add, what keeps you nervous or what gets you nervous?
Well, of course, what happened in the past is not a predictor of the future, as we all know. So I definitely have enjoyed my time serving clients around the world, even though I've stayed in Silicon Valley for the last 30 years. In those 30 years, I've been traveling to my worldwide clients almost on a weekly basis to 40 different countries that I've served. And what that gave me was a view into problems that companies, large and small, Fortune 500 companies, global companies were facing, and how to modernize their business leveraging emerging technologies. And of course, the common thread in my experience has been the data and applied AI technologies. We used to call it cognitive computing during IBM Watson days. And then now, of course, everybody's adopted the term AI. But long back, AI was not the operative word. AI was a dirty word because researchers felt that their efforts were being wasted and because they were not being funded. So, that said, what excites me is the space of innovation that's happening in this field, that you sleep one night and get up in the morning with so many different releases from all these different startups and even these hyperscaler companies, like whether it is Google, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Microsoft. They are doing partnerships, they are doing innovation announcements and events and so on and so forth. And just in San Francisco alone, there are more than 100 meetups in the AI and emerging technology space every week. So imagine the ecosystem that we are building, and this ecosystem comprises of innovators, engineers, funders, investors, and all of them coming together and helping the next generation and sharing the knowledge freely so that overall society can benefit and overall, uh, of course, everybody looks for these startups to make money, whether they get into IPO or get acquired. But ultimately, we are moving the needle in terms of serving the businesses and ultimately serving humanity. And that's what keeps me excited, getting up every day morning and wanting to immerse myself deeply into it, play with the newer tools, and it's been keeping me very, very active. And look here, we are here on a weekend, and we all here, so we are all made from the same block. We all come from the land of our sages, where wisdom is more important than earning money. And if both of these things happen together, that's what keeps me happy.
Very well spoken. Thank you. What I like is the immense possibility, but I'm a little anxious about how much time it'll take for it to really trickle down all the way to the base of the pyramid. Really, for me, because I'm from India and because I see a huge base of people at the bottom, my questions are always like, how will it impact the common man out there? And so I'll pose a two-part question, and I request the honorable chief guest, Srinivasanji, to respond, and then maybe Yogi also could chime in. It's two-part in the sense of one encompasses a geopolitical risk that we will be living in as nations rapidly advance to get their hands on these technology. And so, Honorable Ambassador, if you could chime in on the volatile, we are one push button away from a war-like situation that we saw in recent years. So there's a heightened geopolitical risk. Does it cause anxiety in you is my question. And then the question to Yogi ji is, um, can the poor access these benefits as fast as possible? For instance, in India, some parts of Hyderabad where it is very sweltering hot, we are used to having straw mats at the entrances and at rooftops to cool. So that's affordable for us at this point, not the changing colors and so on. So affordability to the poor is directed at you. The geopolitical risk for Ambassador, please.
Thank you very much. It's already 11 o'clock my time, Sunday night. So I'm not at my best. But I'm glad you asked a geopolitical question rather than a technical question. As I think I hinted in my initial talk that the world is topsy-turvy, that we all understand. It's not only topsy-turvy, it keeps changing by the minute, depending on the temper of a single man somewhere in the United States. So the geopolitical risk is much more today than ever before. And we are just waiting that this period will be over. But that doesn't change the rapidity of the changes in geopolitics. The reality is that the post-World War system enshrined in the UN Charter is dead. There is no possibility of the UN doing anything when a permanent member of the Security Council invades another member of the United Nations. This was not expected. In fact, somebody raised a question, if that happens, what will you do? And everybody laughed. They said, oh, permanent member will fight a war against another member. Impossible. We don't need to think about that eventuality. But we are here, there now. And the Secretary General is persona non grata in a member country. You know that. So what is left of the United Nations? During the pandemic, China prevented the Security Council from even meeting because they were afraid that the responsibility will put on them. So none of these was envisaged in the global order that we had in mind. And therefore, we are all in the process of adjusting ourselves to a possible new global order. And therefore, people are not trusting anyone else. They're all keeping their plans secret because you never know which camp you will end up and what the camps will be. That's as bad as that. And that is why you find so many issues remaining unresolved. The Security Council is out of it because 5 vetoes are there to veto everything. And therefore, we are actually looking at the possibility of an alternative to the United Nations. After the First World War, we had League of Nations and now United Nations. Maybe time has come to have another structure which would guarantee equality and sovereignty, etc., etc. So it's a very, very uncertain situation. And technology, as I explained, sometimes helps, sometimes hurts political views, and that we have to live with. And that is the interesting world we are in. I heard the definition of interesting, the American dictionary. So it could be either very bad or worth considering. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yogi ji, a short, quick reply from you.
Okay, so I'm coming from the technology side. Yeah, back, I think around 1981, 82, I was at a solar energy conference and a keynote speaker there. At that time, solar panels price was $100 a watt of output. And the speaker said, I foresee one day that price will be down to $1 a watt, from $100 to $100. Everybody in the audience laughed at him. So, he's just dreaming. And today, as far as the cost is concerned, it's come down to about 25 cents a watt. And so I'm going into the affordability of the technologies. The innovations that I just mentioned, and these are just few, there are many other innovations. When I give a lecture on that, even 1 hour is not enough. So, for example, the nanoscale antennas, and I said eventually they will be biologically grown. The cost over there, I mean, even 25 cents is too much. And so where we're going to is using nature to provide for our needs, and then doing it at a cost level that everybody can afford. Then you say, well, even then, some in the lower income level may not be able to afford, and that's where policy comes in. Again, giving you an example, but you can utilize that in different ways. So I was in Gainesville, Florida, and the electrical utility there was owned by the city. And so we were at that time promoting solar water heating. And the problem with solar water heating was initial cost. It was high, even though you are getting the benefit throughout its lifetime. So I proposed to the city that the utility pay for the initial costs and charge only that much from the customers that they are saving from that solar water heater. And eventually, in about 10 years, their cost will be paid with interest to the utility. Utility will benefit, and so will the customer. So point I'm making is you can come up with policy where it is a win-win situation for everyone, and you take that burden of initial costs away from poor customers. So that's the electrical power production. I gave another example of cooling. Now, right now, poor people just cannot afford cooling. But if you have a paint that can be applied as spray paint and that cools your house by itself, because it is using nature now, because we are utilizing the way nature exchanges heat, and that is by radiation to deep space. And that becomes affordable for even poor people. And so then again, policy comes into the picture as to how you help the very poor in the initial cost.
Fantastic. Thank you for those wonderful responses. We have two more things to do. I'd like to just pose a question to Dr. Lata Christie and Philip Thomas, and then I'll invite Sid Jain, my colleague, in a little while to wrap up. So thank you for your patience, folks. This has been a riveting webinar. And so, Dr. Christie and Mr. Philip Thomas, everyone invariably talked about the guardrails and the ethical challenges and conflicts. What are some 1 to 3 kind of big, broad stroke struggles and challenges you are likely to see, and how will it play out insofar as the ethical dilemmas are concerned, and what guardrails are we talking about? How does that play out in, let's say, common man's parlance and so on? Philip, you may want to go first.
Sure. So I think so. It's very hard, honestly, to do guardrails in a very macro scale. So let's be clear. Moral laws have their limitations. But I want to also talk about a couple of other things. One of the things that we've obviously lost with the advent of intense technology use, if I may use that word, is the idea of community and interpersonal communication. We don't meet with people, right? The fact is, because we don't meet with people, we don't really know what affects the other person. So I think along with the idea of possibility, we've got to start bringing in the concept of positivity. I mean, see, the change is happening. I mean, change is inevitable. We can't fight change. The real question is, how do we deal with change and how do we make it a better world? So with guardrails, there are a couple of things. One, of course, we can do a bunch of things that we tend to do within the legal system, to protect people, to make sure that, a patient, for example, patient privacy or banking information is kept together. But there is another side that I think we've got to be very careful about. And this, I think I want to address your question of how does this affect people who are poor in the bottom of the pyramid in India, using Dr. Prahlad's term. See, we have a very unique concept in India called Jugad. And many times the government tries to stop Jugaad, which is a problem. We should not be stopping Jugaad. We should be allowing its expansion so that they begin to understand the limits of their creativity within the concept of the world at large. So I think one of the things that we have been very good in India, at least from my growing up days, and even it's changed a lot, is that we've been very good at stopping things. The real question is, how do we allow things now? And how do we allow smaller kids who are poor to dream big? I mean, Professor Yogi talked about environmental factors. I did live for a very brief time, 3 months, when I was a college kid. I lived in a mud hut in the middle of Bihar during summer. It was cool inside. It was actually cool. There was no electricity. It was cool. But then suddenly now I'm living in a big house where I need to have insulation and everything. And suddenly I forgot how comfortable that was in those days, or the simplicity of food. You understand what I'm saying? There is something about rediscovering simplicity that can actually be a great way to help us rediscover our own humanity. So I just want to say that and let Dr. Lata respond.
So, yeah, innovation needs rails. When people hear future technologies, I think they imagine speed, a smarter AI, quantum breakthroughs, autonomous system, and a world that feels like science fiction. But I feel the problem is not only what technology can do, the real problem is what it can do at that scale, fast, and in the wrong hands. So the right question is not just can we build it, what guardrails keep it safe, and who stays accountable. That's why I just yesterday I finished my defense viva on artificial general intelligence and the ethical governance. I made a new framework for that. So in earlier technological eras, harm often come from hardware failure. Today, harm can come from decision failure, an AI system recommending the wrong action, a fake video triggering panic, for example, a cyber attack amplified by automation. So now we are moving towards three realities: AI becoming agentic, digital life becoming copyable, security becoming foundational. So I feel governance is not bureaucracy, governance is safety engineering for society. So what I wanted to say is in rails, if I say rail, our responsibility, our someone must own the outcome. So it begins with clarity. Who signs off deployment? Who is accountable for harms? Who can stop the system if something goes wrong? Okay, and then A, access control. Limit who can use what and how. Role based access. Not everyone gets the same power, like separation of duties, rate limits, and all those things. And then I, integrity, protect data, models, and communication. So, zero trust security, these are some of the things. Encryption, key management that is future ready. And then L, limits, define what the system must never do. So, no fully autonomous lethal decisions without accountable human control, human in loop, no high risk medical decisions without clinician oversight, no irreversible actions without human confirmation. So, no identity creation or digital afterlife replication without consent. And finally, yes, surveillance and safety checks. Governance must be ongoing. So it should be like red teaming, attack your own system before others do, audio trails and so on. So finally, I wanted to say that in defense, the danger is speed without judgment. So governance is not only laws. People often think governance means a regulation. But governance is a stack of technical guardrails, organizational guardrails, legal guardrails, social guardrails. So the finally I want to close with one line. The future belongs not to the most powerful technologies, but to the most trusted technologies. The one we can audit, control, and hold accountable. So that's why innovation needs rails, accountability, security, limits, and continuous safety checks. That's what I wanted to answer for that.
Hey, lovely. Like someone alluded to, 90 minutes is not enough for a topic like this. When you bring four heavy hitters and a chief guest who's got so much to offer as wisdom and insight. So It's been my pleasure moderating this panel. Now I'll request my colleague, esteemed colleague, Secretary Sid Jain to come in on and wrap it up for us. And then the leaders, Thomas Abraham and Prakash ji, can do some informal interaction based on your availability. Sid Jain, please.
Thank you all for being here on a Saturday. Different time zones, it's afternoon, morning, or night, wherever you guys are. But it's a fantastic way to set the tone as we end 2025 and start 2026. The challenges of AI remain, and you guys have given enough color for each one of us here in the room to address it in different forms. And Lataji, there's no better way to end the session than use your own quote. You're using alphabetically defining how to do it. So I would say everybody take a note of these. If you have taken notes, we'll also circulate this in clips. But let me start by thanking our esteemed chief guest, Ambassador Srinivasan, for taking the time, joining GOPIO in this very much forum, our chairman, Dr. Thomas Abraham, our moderator, Sunil, who stepped in for Professor Prabhu Guptara, who actually put this all together and could not for a personal loss in his family, which made him not be joining with us, but he put this entire thing together. And let's not forget and take a second to pray for the person who is no longer between us. And also to our esteemed speakers who are here, Philip, Piyush ji, Yogi ji, as well as Lata ji, you guys did a phenomenal job in covering these points. To our president, Prakash ji, you give us continued support. To all the folks that are from GOPIO different chapters, international as well as chapter heads who are here in the room, we acknowledge your presence. To Vatsala ji, who makes things happen in the background, always smoothly, so that we don't see any problems at all. We have some youth initiative leaders like Vasu Pawar ji here. We have Bharat Rana ji, who heads the North Jersey chapter, and Nami Kaur ji, who is the global ambassador for GOPIO. So recognizing a few individual folks, but there are a lot of GOPIO folks in the room. And I'm sure each one of them is going to go to their respective chapters and roles back. Take the learnings from you folks in this room and welcome you back again in 2026 in some way, shape, or form to expand on these thoughts. On GOPIO side, I encourage everyone who, if you want to continue to be part of these webinars, become a member of either the international or any one of our chapters. We offer these experiences for two reasons. One, to continuously keep ourselves updated, but two, as a community, as a diaspora, to become stronger, better, and better representative of what we're doing ahead. Thank you all for being here on a Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sid. I will make a few remarks. First of all, thank you all, Ambassador Srinivasan, and all fantastic speakers. We had in 95 minutes, we covered a whole lot of things. As Sid mentioned, we have, according to our new amendment in our constitution, people above 60, you get 1/3 of the membership fee off. So if it is $1,500, you can get it for $1,000, or you can take 5-year membership. It's a member-supported organization. We have done quite well for last 36 years. Many of you have OCA card. This was our creation. 1989, when we said dual nationality, it took about 15 years, or rather PAO card and another 16 years to get OCA card. So we have done collectively a lot of things. We have accomplished a great deal of things, including there was an issue of passport surrender when government of India wanted to start a couple of $1,000s as fines, which nobody knew, and we stopped it right within 10 days. So these kind of things happen, but we help government of India and India, so many other things. We motivate people to help India. One is in technology. We had 3 technology session this year. We had also a physical meeting shaping future technologies diaspora role in Brisbane, Australia. And taking it further, what we are planning to do is that we have a Science and Technology Council, and we want to include all of you in that WhatsApp group. We don't allow anybody to post any other information, only science and technology. And to take it further up, what we plan to do is that we are going to create a network for each of the technologies separately, whether it is advanced material, nanotechnology, solar energy, AI, quantum computing, so that we will develop a global network of Indian scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers, so that they can all be communicating each other and know each other. And this will be an initiative from GOPIO Science and Technology Council. So we are moving forward with so many things. We also have a GOPIO the Diaspora Museum, which we are launched already. We campaign on that. And we are working, a lot of groundwork is needed to do. This will be a major museum, hopefully in New Delhi. So we will keep you informed. So many things are happening.
The
Prakash,
Mentorship Council.
Something? Go ahead, Prakash.
The Mentorship Council.
Go ahead.
We are trying to create a mentorship council so that people who are knowledgeable can help startups in India, working through the incubators in India, in universities in India. And so we're creating a mentorship council of people who are well-established, experienced businessmen, scientists, engineers, who could help startups in India.
Well, thank you all.